of the orbiter Discovery, and the shuttle has cleared
Not Halloween
Hey,
anymore.
welcome to the Health or High Water podcast. We're with Bret, Bethany. What's going on, Bethany?
Good, I'm doing good.
And Tripp, Mr. Tripp here. I'll just want, first of all, thank you guys so much for joining us. We're gonna have a little fun today. It's been a crazy already 2 days. Gosh, it feels like it's Thursday.
Oh my God, yes.
Thank you for joining our ride. We hope you followed some of the last podcast where we introduced Bethany and pelvic specialist. And
She's going to be on here a little bit more now that she's in the building.
yeah. So we're gonna have a female presence, which is much needed for Tripp and I, to give us both some realistic perspective. So we're not high on our own ideas. Thank you for joining us. We have different topics that we cover. If you're new to us, we have different topics that we cover, from nutrition to wellness to the industry, pelvic floor to different supplementations. We kind of run the gamut here, and today is no different. If you hear Tripp struggling here, Tripp, what's going on with your back?
I am number one. I got to admit, it's my fault that I haven't been stretching enough and I haven't been, doing the right things. Recovery-wise, it's my fault, and I'm paying the piper right now, real bad.
Ooh, yeah, he's moaning and groaning. We kind of joke about it, but man, seriously, you gotta get and stay healthy with that back. Ooh.
Yeah.
I haven't had any kind of issue like this in years and years and years.
Back is the worst.
It is. Yeah, because it affects everything you do, every movement.
Yeah.
With your back. Do you do a lot of lower back work and stuff like that?
Yeah, especially with like how involved the lower back and the pelvis are together. They're so interconnected, and there's so many muscular and tendinous connections and interactions that they're really, really necessary to look at both. So yeah.
What's kind of like the process for you? What do you see a lot of? Is it just repetitive stress injuries? Car accidents, stuff like that, and then like what's this? How do you just kind of assess the damage and then kind of go from there?
Yeah.
What's the process?
Definitely just going over their history and figuring out if you sit all day at work, obviously that's a factor. If you drive all day, if you're on your feet all day, and your past injury history and surgical history, if at all, and all those different factors play huge roles into what you're feeling now and what your prognosis looks like, and etc.
Well, I think we got to thank some sponsors here too. Herculean Adventure out there, O2 Boost, Kalevala Labs, Gene Planet, You versus You. Am I missing anybody besides Pelvic Harmony now?
Yeah.
Pelvic Harmony, word has it around town. It's one of the greatest pelvic floor businesses in Denver, and you should definitely check them out.
Yeah, you have a grand opening coming up, right, on the 7th?
Yeah, 7th from 3 to 6 in Ascend Performance Training. Come check it out.
1472 Jersey Street, Denver,
Yes. And then stay afterward for some networking.
Yeah, we got a nice little networking event. You guys are in Denver. Come check that out for sure. And then today we are talking about, mostly in the perspective of what you people are going through, our clients are going through right now, and some maybe some tips and stuff we can bequeath everybody on this episode.
What did you just say?
Bequeath means to gift.
Does it?
Am I learning a word
think
today?
that's-
Look it up real
I think
quick.
that's bequeath.
Isn't it the same thing? It's like
Is it?
tomato.
I don't want to be one to say it's a made-up nonsensical term that is not an actual word or concept in any meaningful sense.
Is that what?
Are you serious? That's the exact thing. It's a comedic invention used for shock value and humor in the context of
What?
That does not surprise me. You would use that term.
Hilarious. I've heard that in movies.
Yeah.
It's not my day.
It is not your day.
Man.
Tripp likes to use sometimes
Nonsensical terms.
it's from South Park.
Oh, that's where I got it from. Yeah,
That'll do it.
That makes sense. That's
Oh dear, we have gone off the rails, off the deep end.
Off the deep end.
I actually put a definition behind it.
So what were you referring to when you were trying to say something?
Just so like as we talk about some of these client issues that we've seen, some other issues that we've seen in the healthcare and wellness industry is let's give them some good information about what's going on.
Yeah.
Like for a great example, one thing that one great piece of advice that we have is, listen, if you're trying to focus on your posture, sitting in the car and actually putting the top mirror at the right angle for you to have to be at the right posture, such a small thing, but so big, right? So like just practical advice that we can give some people as they're listening and taking on these issues that people are going through.
I like it. Keep going.
But one time well, here's something that I've been talking to a whole bunch in these networking events and stuff, is everyone being frustrated with being on so many freaking pills.
Yeah.
All the time, right? And we understand that there's all these side effects that go along with these pills, and a lot of them aren't right for us, right? Like people should not be on statins for a long time. A lot of these antidepressants that are prescribed should be short term and short acting. They're not getting to the actual issue that's going on. So as you guys are out there listening right now, you guys should be asking and not even begging, you guys should be demanding better service from your healthcare, from your state, from your country, because it is an absolute shit show right now.
Yeah, I mean, to play the devil's advocate though, how do you demand better service? Like, what do you mean by that?
Well, first and foremost is stop giving power to the companies through Congress to let these companies get away with it. Right? I mean, look at OxyContin. They got slammed pretty hard. But the owners are going to get out scot-free after they started one of the worst epidemics this country has ever seen. So number one is going to be legislation, right? Look at Europe. When we talk about something else like foods, right? We talk about foods. Europe has a totally different standard for what goes into their foods and what can go into their foods. And that starts at legislation from our government. So people need to be writing the representatives. People need to be organizing communities. I mean, I'm not sure why people aren't really writing about this, to be honest. I mean, it took my mom 9 months to get a CAT scan for her head when she had a stroke. Like, so something's got to change.
Because of COVID, or
what?
Because it took her 9 months to get a CAT scan.
No, not at all. It wasn't because of COVID. It's because they were backed up and didn't have a neurologist that could see her.
That's
9
insane.
months, wow.
So that's kind of where I'm getting at here with today is like, we're just all three of us are going through a really big uphill battle against some really big wigs. But I do think with people like that are listening to this podcast right now that they want more from health, and as well as like they listen to this because they trust our opinions and viewpoints.
Yeah. So you could also, like, an alternative viewpoint too is you always are voting for what you want with your dollar, where you spend it. So, we could go to legislation and go, can we create more rules? Can you create more, restrictions or this or that, the other? But also what you could do is you could make your own garden. You could shop at the places you believe in. Go to the companies. You have more power over your dollar too. Like, where you spend it matters a lot. And a lot of today's world is convenience. And so these companies we're seeing popping up like Uber delivery and McDonald's, which isn't popping up, but I mean, like, these types of companies are because that's what our values have grown into, is convenience. So we have proven as Americans, we want those things. So, I agree with you. It's good to demand more and stuff like that. Like, it starts with your decision making, I think.
I agree with you there.
Part of the big episode too I wanted to cover too is nutrition. I know we were just talking about nutrition. What's how's your nutrition, by the way? And I'm not attacking you in any by means. Just wanted to get you kind of, what's like, how's your nutrition? Great, good, fair?
Right now I'd say fair. It fluctuates when I go through a few months of being really good in where I'm shopping and meal prepping healthy meals so that they're ready for me. Then I'll go through a few months of more sporadic, like eating out and ordering, and it's kind of up and down.
Do you feel, is there a noticeable difference the way you feel? Do you feel better when you are prepping your own meals and making your own meals? Do you notice a difference? Yeah.
A physical difference for sure, especially in the gym, and just a mental difference of that question is out of the daily life of what am I going to have for dinner when it's already made. And I know it's something that I like because I made it and I had it the past 4 days. So the physical difference and mental, just less worry about it, less stress, less decision making.
What do you order out when you go out? Are you talking about just stopping at a restaurant? Do you order Uber Eats? Do you do stuff like that?
I hate like Uber Eats and DoorDash and stuff. I feel so lazy if I do that.
Yeah.
And it's so expensive. So usually going out to restaurants. I love tacos.
Gotcha.
My roommate spent $8,000 this year on DoorDash alone.
What?
That's actually probably in the ballpark of what I know some people to be around that.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
$8,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even the money that shocks me. It's just like the other stuff. I was having a really interesting conversation with a client the other day about this, about the nutrition. Yeah. So what do you do, right? When you have this, how do you, the key is like, let's pin this down, right? So what's the difference? Is it just you get busy? Is it just like, hey, my life gets kind of crazy and
Yeah. I'll tell myself that I'm busy and it's the excuse that I use. But there are parts of life, especially around the holidays where we are now, where you've got something scheduled every day of the week, every night, every weekday, every weekend day. And if you don't choose the time to do it, you're not going to do it. And you have to choose the time ahead of time. And I just get out of the habit of scheduling it into my Saturday night or my Sunday night to do it. And then it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I had this conversation while I was training, but there's something too also about making your own meals and like getting hungry as you're making the meal. Like
Yes.
this is the natural part of being a human being, right? Like everything that we're doing here stems from like understanding what a human being is supposed to be like, right? I think that's been a big topic over the last like 15 years. Is like what's natural and normal for us. And if you look back, a normal process is going to the grocery store or hunting, right? Whatever. Prepping that meal. And as you're prepping it, you're getting hungry. Your body's getting ready to eat this. But I think there's something weird that happens when you don't have that process, when you don't have energy put into your food.
Yeah.
Your food is medicine, like
Yeah.
100%.
I also think that there's almost like a ritualistic pattern for it too. It's like you're prepping. You feel like you said, like you're getting hungry as you're seeing the cook. You're seeing the food getting done. As soon as it's done, it's like, oh yes, it's done. It's almost like an accomplishment.
Yep.
And I think people are missing that accomplishment and that feel good feeling after you do cook those. But they're so uptight. Oh, I don't have time for this. I'm going to order out, and they miss that accomplishment, and then they feel even worse because they probably ordered bad food.
Yeah.
And they beat themselves up.
Right.
And then it's a circle. So really, like, what's the answer, right?
Yeah.
What's the answer? I mean, I want to hear from you guys.
I think it's largely person to person, but for me, just blocking my time ahead of time.
Speak right into that microphone.
Yeah.
So people can hear you. You have a great voice.
Just blocking my time ahead of time and making it non-negotiable. I can't plan anything at that time. I have to go to the store, go home, plan my whole week out, and get it done. Yeah.
Organization is probably number one for everybody, right? Planning things out ahead of time, making, like you said earlier today, or earlier to me yesterday, it's like, hey, it's like if you know what your day is going to be like, you know where to fit the right things in. It's the same kind of thing. But I also think there's a communal and ethical factor that we've been missing for taking care of each other. Now, I'm saying, like, getting in the neighborhood, having a block party or whatnot, you're seeing other people like eating healthy foods and whatnot. I really feel like that community's been eroded a lot, especially when these sports, like youth sports, are being destroyed and whatnot. I mean, I think it's a huge problem, and there's a community aspect to it that's not there, right? Like, I used to have a friend, my mom's friend used to come over, and every time I'd have some like shitty food or drink, like, why are you drinking that? I mean, we're spending less time with our neighbors and less time in community, less time at church, less time at these other places, and we're not being reinforced with these ethical ideas as well as respect ideas. Right? We got to respect ourselves, and that comes from community and ethics. To learn from yourself and others.
Yeah, and totally. And I think too, the tough thing is figuring out the whole grocery store situation. I've had clients before. I try to make nutrition as simple as possible. Because I think complicating things just brings you more issues. But I've had people that just don't know how to go to the grocery store, right? They've never been taught. They go there and they're not sure what to buy. They don't know what's healthy. And if you're out there right now, you're listening to this and you're like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, okay, you're one of the ones that aren't. But there are a lot of people that struggle figuring out how to do the grocery store. So what are some solutions?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up too, because, excuse me, the the grocery store is the gate, and you is the gateway into your home. You're the one that lets those things go through the scanner. You're the ones that let the garbage go through the door, and then you make excuses. And I'm just talking about generalities for people that don't know how to shop. As they make these excuses, well, I don't know why I'm not getting to my goals here. It's like, well, because you have to be that responsible one for yourself and your family to buy those right things and learn how to shop responsibly. There's some things that I learned some carpentry stuff and whatnot, but I never learned any sales. Right, there's things that we're all inadequate at, and I think admitting that and learning is one of the first steps to get this right.
Yeah, I've actually gone to the grocery store with a lot of clients, and just seeing the thinking habits as we go through of like, I'm going to get this because I want this for breakfast. I'm going to pair this with this. Oh, don't get that kind because it's high in sugar. Just making those smarter decisions. It's a huge barrier for a lot of people. It's scary but once you start going to the grocery store, it's empowering to pick out your own meals because you're really picking out and you're voting what companies you want to be successful with your dollar. Most of the meats are, the like the little sausages and the processed foods you can stay away from. Go pick a carb, get like a grain. If you like rice or pasta, go with rice or pasta. Pasta's a little fatter. Get a genetic test, see what works best for your gut. And then pick your protein. Figure out what kind of protein you want, right? Do you want fish? Do you want beef? Most women don't need a lot of steak in their diet. Mostly men who work out and lift heavy weights do. So there's all these things, right? It's a lot to take on your own too.
It is a lot. And then even when you go and buy all the right things and you have a plan, sometimes it just sits in the fridge and you don't use it. And that's the tough part too. Even if you have stuff in your fridge, sometimes people are still going to order. And that is just like a mental decision to be disciplined and to use what you bought before you order anything,
I see a lot of people use it as an excuse. It's like, well, I just let it go bad anyway. It's like, well, what's the problem there?
Yeah.
It's like, well, are you not planning things out properly with your meals? And that's one thing too. Like you said, beginning organization, and you said you get to pick out your meals. You're right. Pick out your meals ahead of time before you go in the grocery store. Know exactly what you need to get. Only get enough that's not going to rot, and then go back again. Yeah. Make these quick trips to the store.
Yeah, so let's actually talk about that real quick because that's a really good point you brought up. Listeners, how many times have you went out there and bought an entire bag or whatever it is of arugula or spinach, and it sits in your fridge and you don't use it and you say you're going to use it, right? And why is that? So what happens is you have all these great ideas. So you've done the first step, which is amazing. But the second step is your body's craving the sugar and the salt that you've conditioned yourself. So what happens is you have your couple of meals during the day, and then you have your final meal of the day. You're at home, and you're like, I'm hungry, but am I hungry or am I bored? That's really the big question.
I love that because that is so true. Boredom does have a huge impact on people eating. It's like, well, I don't know what to do. It's like, well, maybe pick up a book or go on a walk or do something productive to fill that. Because if you guys go back and listen to one of our first season, we have a whole episode on habits. And if you get rid of a bad habit, you are more likely to fill that bad habit with another bad habit if you don't be consistent with a good habit to replace it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's known, right? If we get rid of a habit, let's say I stop drinking for a day or whatever, and I'm like, well, I'm not to be very disciplined here. I'm gonna pick up snorting Coke, right? That's a pretty extreme example, but that's what I'm talking about. That's how devastating some of these habits can be to people when they're not organizing and replacing bad habits with good ones to make sure that we're curing boredom, curing our anxiety, and all these other things that are causing us to go out of the hell loop and fall back into it and just keep on going over and over and over.
Yeah, good point. And so you're craving the sugar, you're craving that, and then you have the meal, you order out, you're like, I ate good all day, I'm just going to have this meal, and then you go, crap, I screwed up the whole day. Now, and then the cycle just starts over. So how do we fix that? How do we adjust that? And that's kind of what we're here to talk about and figure this out. Those conversations are so difficult to approach, and that's sort of our job right? That's our job to make those conversations easy. They don't have to be stressful. They don't have to be, beating yourself up. But one thing I can promise you, and then we'll pivot on this point, is that when you are exercising regularly and you're in a progressive routine, not just a Orange Theory, hey, I'm going to jump on the treadmill 3 days a week and do some mindless, 12 to 15. Like if you have a progressive lifting program, which everybody should be on a progressive lifting program of some sort, then your food all starts to make sense because you can start to eat because you're preparing for that workout that you know is coming, that you know is progressive. So it gets fun, honestly. It gets very fun. So, you're not alone out there. Mm-hmm. What else, you guys?
Well, I think I know we kind of touched on this a little bit on an episode, but
it's on your mind.
Programming workouts for people and the right thing, like choosing your body type, ectomorph, endomorph, what have you, your genetics, your goals. There's so many different factors in building a program for yourself and knowing what to expect when you guys are asking a personal trainer or a recovery specialist to what your actual goals are. So there's all these different factors going into this. So I've got some questions for you guys. This is more of a PT question for you, more of a personal training for you.
Nice.
So for PT, what are some questions that these listeners should be asking? And as well as giving you information to make sure you can get a proper diagnosis, as well as making sure that you're putting them on the right plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so one of the things we look for is what are you doing with most of your time? If you're not working out a lot, if you're sitting all day, that kind of influences what we would recommend as far as nutrition and water and hydration. And what to ask, make sure you're asking what vitamins they would recommend and micronutrients and minerals, because there are so many options for all of those. Like if you're getting cramps a lot, like look for your magnesium and your potassium, but there's like 10 or 20 different vegetables you can find those in, and it's an easy Google search, but your PT and or personal trainer will know what you're really needing, what you're lacking in, and etc.
All right, and then it's going to bounce off to you here too. Is let's say someone's never been in a, and I know the sun is just beating the crap out of you right now.
The sun is on my face, and if you knew me, you would know I love it. I love the sun. I used to just sit outside and just like
bake.
Yeah, and just be like, oh, that's great. Right. You don't like the sun? What do you want it dark and cloudy every day? What are you, Oscar the Grouch over here? Don't be judging me, Oscar.
You're a grouch. Bitch, I'm a fucking trash can.
Okay, this was a health podcast.
I cussed earlier. It's all good. For you, though, so let's say someone has never worked out. They don't eat properly. They're pretty much a novice. Like, what should they go in expecting from a personal training client, and what questions would you recommend them ask to make sure they're getting to their goals?
What questions should they be asking their personal trainer if they haven't done it before?
Yeah, like during intake.
During intake, honestly, I'd say find a great personal trainer. He'll take you through the whole thing. You can ask questions as you get curious about it if there's something you don't understand, but just kind of go with the flow. I don't think there's any specific questions I think I would ask. A great trainer should kind of guide you through the process and address it. There are a lot of great trainers out there, so I think just finding somebody you really mesh with and you trust and who's focused on longevity, not just short-term stuff that may injure you.
So if you're looking for a great personal trainer,
Yep.
Didn't hear that. So if someone's looking for a great personal trainer, how would you go about finding them?
Good question. Recommendations from friends, for sure. Just find somebody you really trust, and then go with the gut feeling. I think if you trust yourself and someone you mesh with, I think you're gonna be fine.
Yeah, establishing that relationship with your healthcare provider or wellness provider is really big, and some personalities don't mix very well. But most of the time, if you guys are focused on the same goals, they mix pretty well.
Yeah. I mean, just go in and say, "Hey, I'm thinking about personal training. I'm considering it. Would you mind taking me through a session just so I can get a chance to see your style, and then we'll get And then there's no obligation. You don't feel like, you're obligated to sign up. But if you like it, then you can sign up.
I always look at their reviews. And even
Yeah.
if I go through and they don't have like many pictures on their Google site or anything like that, if their reviews are great, I'll definitely check them out.
Yeah, reviews are good too.
Yeah.
We have all 5 stars.
Yes.
And on this podcast, we just got our 6-star review. So thank you to the listeners and the viewers here. That helps us out so much. Thank you.
You know what's interesting too? Yeah, it's interesting too about the personal training industry is it used to be sort of like this. I would visualize it as this elite service, only for the wealthy, right? Only the wealthy had personal trainers, right? But that's really not where we're at today. Today it is kind of morphed, and everyone can really afford. Well, I mean, almost everybody can afford a personal trainer who's working in a middle class job, and it's super affordable. And honestly, if you find a good one, they're going to take your health and wellness to the next level. You know, if you're working a job, it's hard to focus on a lot of these things. So, you know, it's a really cool service, and it's cool to see the industry morph to be available to more people.
No, I agree. I think it might be the most need is actually in the lower to middle class.
Yeah.
Right, you know, people that can't afford these, you know, a lot like farmers markets, foods and whatnot, and you know, I know food prices are outrageous right now for a lot of people, but
Yes.
you can still find some cheap alternatives to getting fit and healthy or whatnot. But I kind of forget where I was going there. My back started seizing up a little bit.
Bethany, what else? What else is going on? What anything on your mind? Fitness, health related?
Yeah, I was gonna say I think when I'm not feeling like cooking, sometimes just to get me in the kitchen, I'll just make it more fun. You know, I'll put like my favorite music on, I'll turn it up, sing while you're cooking, put something fun on TV that you can like maybe see from the kitchen, or call your family while you're doing it. You know, just make it more fun and enjoyable and look forward to it.
That's a super good point. Yeah, we've gotten away from that. Like I said, that we have gotten away from that. It's just our society. Hey, order out.
Or go out.
Go
Yeah,
out. I mean, going out is a little bit better than ordering out, but still it's the same thing.
Well, my thing too is like where a lot of these like restaurants getting their quality food from. I mean, I understand they have their ratings and stuff on there, and I had to go through that with the protein bar, making sure I was up to code with the food and beverage. But still, they don't really do much with the quality of food that you bring in. If you bring in food, it's up to temperature. They're going to allow it to go. So I know a lot of these. I don't know if it's in Denver, but I think it's in New York. That a lot of these restaurants are getting slammed because people are taking home some of the food with them and getting it tested and understanding how bad these restaurants are putting their food.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a business. I understand, right? But putting poison and like other chemicals and stuff like that just to affect your bottom line is terrible.
Yeah.
So for me, like I've been trying my best to eat out less and less and less because I just don't trust the food quality control from most of any businesses.
Yeah. And then there's the whole rationalization thing is big too. Is like, oh, I went to McDonald's, but I got a salad, right? And so I've heard some trainers and some people be like, oh, that's good. You're making adjustments. And I'm in a different school. I'm in the school like, don't lie to yourself. You went out. Like you were at McDonald's. I don't care what you had. I don't care if you got the Diet McChicken or if you, I don't care what you got. Like, just consider that going out. Don't beat yourself up and get back on track.
Yeah.
Don't have this emotional, get away from this emotional roller coaster of food. Is there anything else? I want to put a bow on the food thing before we pivot. Anything else food that we didn't cover?
Have we talked about, or have you guys heard of the Blue Zones thing?
Tripp just literally lit up like a bulb.
Yeah.
Yes, we have. We Blue Zones.
We did an episode on Blue Zones.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I thought of just a minute ago was the communal cooking aspect of some of the locations that they'll all contribute and they'll take turns making the main dish, I think. And I feel like you were hitting on that earlier.
Well, and too, like the family and friends and community, they start organizing who's growing what vegetables, who's doing what things, and they all come together and they actually create something that's healthy, mentally and physically, right? And then they can converse and they do these music stuff and like that's how they're keeping like these older generations so what is it? It's cognition based or cognitive. Sorry, but keeping them cognitive, keeping them moving. That's why like I feel like they're they're lasting so long. Is they also have some genetic factors probably that play into that. But the fact is, like, they're doing everything right for themselves, and I think that's something we could all learn to do. Is eating a little better, cooking together, playing music together, being mindful of everything. And last is just slow to moderate moving. Older you get, and whatnot. But those 4 tenets are not a bad way to live.
And what are they again? Remind the listeners.
So it's minerals and vitamins, movement, music, and mindfulness.
And what's the mindfulness part?
Mindfulness is making sure that you're taking time to stay engaged with things. Like, one of the things what they had in Okinawa was all these older ladies had like this little lunch that they'd have every single week or whatnot, and they make sure they keep in touch with everybody, making sure they're remembering things from the past and doing this as well as if someone in that group has, let's say their house burns down, that entire group puts their money in together and pays for the house. Right, so it's this huge communal aspect of trusting your neighbors and trusting your community, and we have completely lost that.
Isolation.
Yeah. Convenience and isolation has been one of the biggest pitfalls of Americans that I can put my finger on.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So if we kind of put a bow on this whole nutrition thing, if we've covered everything, yes, it is a tough task. Yes, sugar is addictive. Yes, our soil is not as great as it used to be. The ingredients don't have as much bioavailability. Life is more stressful, but these are all things that kind of give us an opportunity to make excuses on why we're not eating the way we want to eat. We've kind of identified, I think, together that it is better for us to prepare meals, and we feel better. We feel the energy from it. We're saving money. We're spending more time at home with our family or friends, etc. But we just have to find a way to get around these excuses. And also, too, not to beat ourselves up, right? We're not perfect. We're not bodybuilders. We're not going to count calories, and that's not sustainable. So just finding a healthy balance with our food, knowing that it is the medicine that gives us energy in life. So this was our nutrition episode. Bethany, final thoughts and words?
Yeah, I feel like we could talk about it forever. It's a never-ending road of education, and honestly, just if you're trying to avoid one or a couple medications, just do some of your own research too and see like natural ways to lower my blood pressure or XYZ, and see what you find. There's so much free information out there.
Yeah, there's now, especially with like ChatGPT, you can have access to so much. Yeah, that's a really good point.
My final point is, just to add on to what you're saying, is our bodies are fine machines that if it's fueled properly, it's moved just like a car and taken care of, you're going to last a long time and be able to do things that other people that just didn't take care of themselves will.
Yeah.
And speaking on that point too is, my mom was on like statins and everything else, and what I did was just eat right, got her to bed and woke her up at the same time, and made sure that she was moving as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I got her most of the pills.
Yeah. Nice.
Right. So simple little things, but they are disciplinary.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Health or High Water. We're glad you stopped by, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care and have a great rest of your day.